Thank you. Uh, I must say that one of the most lasting effect actually of the Lagos Plan of Action was the radical shift it bring about the perception of economic development policies and the strategies on the continent. You know, to put it in Adedeji's own word, development at that time was perceived by many African countries newly independent as creating a new British in Africa, a new France, a little Russia, and so on. So for the first time, by adopting the Lagos Plan of Action, they collectively agreed that they should be inward-looking and develop strategies for self-reliance and self-sustaining of countries and increase cooperation among African countries. So this was kind of radical shift, and it brought new confidence into Africans and African leadership regarding development issues. A contrario, the structural adjustment program have a more liberal approach. You know, it's built on the World Bank Berg report and what was coined as the Washington consensus. It's all about, you know, the triumph of liberalism and the free market. So unfortunately, in the historical context of the Lagos Plan of Action, the crisis worsen in Africa, and most of our countries have no choice but go at last resort to borrow from the international financial institution. And these were the condition actually for them to be eligible to get a program with this institution. It's, you know, to abide by a set of measures that are radically different actually from what was provided into the Lagos Plan of Action. So it was kind of, in terms of implementation, the Lagos Plan of Action was kind of put in bracket, I should put it that way, because the recommendation and resolution that were there were not followed properly during these 2 decades up to 2000. But nevertheless, the spirit was there, and we saw it quickly after the debate becomes more and more strong on intellectual issues, including in the 90s, you know, when ECA came with this alternative framework to the structural adjustment program. We have to recognize that African countries should be in the driver's seat when it comes to development policy and development programs. And that's what we witnessed in these last 2 decades when the growth came back again on the continent and all the issue of Africa rising and so on. So that's what I will say at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Suleiman. And I don't see any other hands. It's past 2:30. I'm going to ask our panelists for a 1-minute final word. They have been very efficient, very substantive and focused. So, but this time I'm going to ask them a final word about the future in terms of the areas that they have presented. So this time I'm going to start by you, Suleiman, the only man on this panel. So you have been quite courageous, and what is your final word now that we have the African CFTA and going to the future, projecting ourselves in the future? You have all 60 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Not only because I'm optimistic by nature, but I should say that the future is bright on this continent. Mostly, when I hear to the young people, we witness some of these courageous and talented young people around, but also our fundamentals in terms of economic, in terms of social and political environment are evolving in a positive manner. So we have the AFCFTA. I'm just coming back from Lome. They have ratified the agreement. We'll get the 22 countries required for the agreement to come into force. And we all know that, you know, the AFCFTA is one of the flagship project of the Vision 2063 of the African Union. And we will be very soon in a position, you know, to get the fruits from all this effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Suleiman Escada.
Thank you, Madam Biha. I was quite, again, me too, quite inspired by the young people who had attended the session. There's one major initiative, Madam Biha, that we have forgotten in terms of including in this booklet. It is the initiative by Mr. Amoako, the former executive secretary of ECA, that had helped crafted the African Information Society initiative. At the time where there were more lines, phone lines in Manhattan than in Africa. At the time where there was no mobile transaction, and that was an inspiration for the mobile money applications that Africa innovated on. So I think moving forward, the future is in the youth, the future is in innovation, the future is in building on technology and knowledge for entrepreneurial thinking. We'll make sure we'll add that in this booklet, and we hope that we will be able to have a growth that is not jobless, but that would create jobs for the youth based on their entrepreneurial capacity, their knowledge, and what technology can offer.
Escada, now to Isatu.
Thank you very much, DS. For me, the future is bright. We can see that Africa, it's taking its development into its hands. It's responsible for its development. It has it's been undertaking so many important initiatives, you know, and with partners supporting, but they're in the lead. ECA and indeed UN agencies working in Africa have supported the formulation and continue the implementation of NEPAD and continue to support the implementation of African programs at the priority development programs at the regional and sub-regional levels. Now we see NEPAD being transformed into the AU Development Agency. So our work is cut out for us. So we should leverage the ongoing UN reforms to ensure that we enhance support in terms of being more coordinated and more coherent. So we'll listen to AU regarding the support that is required in this area, the transformation process of NEPAD into the AU Development Agency, and we're ready to accompany them in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Isatu, and Joanne.
Thank you. I think based on the contribution I think that we have made in the different thematic areas, I take we learned from what's happening from our counterparts in Europe, the regional commission there. They had a small working party on land administration. We thought it was a good idea. So we started something in Africa, and we perfected it. We did a lot better. They will admit it themselves. And now we are the example, because it's only Africa now that has a unified agenda on land. So we are the example that our colleagues from ECLAC and our Asian colleagues are looking at as examples. We are the ones helping them to craft concept notes. I think we've done this before. We have countries that came to Africa to look at our development plans, and they used them and they perfected it. I think we need to go back to, it's almost like, it reminds me of Lion King, and us being told to go back to remember who we are. And I think we need to keep remembering who we are in moving ahead and making the continent shine. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the panelists, and also to this final word in terms of going back and getting to know and understand who we are. As we all know, starting from 1st of January 2019, ECA is starting to implement its new and revamped program of work with 5 strategic directions. We have also, our teams have also distributed the revised strategic framework for 2018-2019. And listening to the 4 panelists here, they were very clear in terms of moving forward with a very bright future. And also what was interesting to me, listening to all of them, it seemed that actually there was a kind of sequencing even in the core functions of ECA in their presentations. There was this sequencing that always started with the think tank role, the knowledge search and generation, and then in some cases going directly to the convening role, where actually ECA was able to influence policymakers based on the knowledge products that, and the research work that ECA did. And then moving on to the operational function. It was quite interesting that I was listening to 4 of them, and with Eskada giving the big picture of the convening role, and the Conference of Ministers giving that platform for the convening, but also providing the strategic direction. I think it's very good for ECA because we can very proudly and authoritatively say that we are already implementing the global SG reform in terms of the core functions of the regional economic commissions. So we have heard from them. It's a very bright future. And we heard that they were all inspired by the youth that we saw today. So let me actually invite you and to thank our 4 panelists who gave us a retrospective, but also short perspective of ECA's work in the big picture of the African continent. Thank you very much. Thank you to them. Thank you very much. I learned a lot from you. Thank you. We should organize it.
One final announcement. Just one final announcement, colleagues.
No.
Since we have been so inspired by these panel discussions. Yeah. Since we've been so inspired by the panel discussions and the innovation challenge for which prizes were given, I have been asked to inform all of you that the young people who have so well inspired us today with their artwork have graciously offered to put on sale these art pieces. And so any of you who is interested can just have a look. The prices are stuck on the art pieces themselves.
Josh, yes. Thank you for this wonderful.